I wonder how many episodes of this podcast start with some sort of sound effect from you.
Usually they all start with me saying, like, Daniel or something similar to that regard.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to see if I know anything about Lomography and like what's going on with that company and who they are and what they do.
Yeah, I definitely don't know who they are or what they do. I don't even know who their daddy is and what he does.
Oh, me neither. They have a part on their website called Other. It's a main tab.
That's their junk drawer. Everyone needs a junk drawer.
You can buy a tin can for 110 negatives. That's cool. And a pack rat bag large LC A+ blue for $12.45.
Literally know nothing about this, but A plus blue that's not a math equation. Can't add those.
It's because you don't have the iPad calculator app. If you had the iPad, if you had the iPad calculator app.
Well, this is off to a great start.
Oh, jeez. Oh, wait, we started? Oh, boy. I have a pre-show topic, and it's a meta topic about podcast editing.
Oh, tell me more.
I was wondering if you could give us an update on your AI podcast editing.
Yeah. It's been a little frustrating lately. So,
is this a new shock mount?
No.
That
is all exactly the same. Nothing's changed.
I don't remember this being in a shock mount. Are you sure?
Positive. I feel like you're on something right now. You're like looking carefully at your microphone. Is this new? Is this shock mount new?
No, it looks different. I see the dust on it, which means it's not new. I just distinctly don't remember this being on a shock mount.
Yeah. So, to make it sound like we intended to do that, the hardware setup of our podcast has not changed. And the way that we edit it in software has not changed in a while. Like I would say probably the last 12-ish episodes have all been edited the same way. I use resound.fm to do some AI editing. I do a little bit of editing myself in Logic, but that's mostly been applying an EQ curve and then doing a little bit of, like cutting out if there's like a major thing, like the time my smoke alarms were going off during the recording. But for the most part, the AI has done a pretty good job of, like cutting out silences and taking out some noise or parts where like maybe you're talking and I like cough or something. It does really good at cutting that stuff out. But if maybe some of you have noticed over the past couple of weeks, it just hasn't been as good. It seems like the levels are, kind of not quite as leveled out as they used to be. And you mentioned that to me, actually. You said you could tell.
Like 1 or 2 episodes ago was a little not great.
Yeah. And so past maybe 2 episodes, we fixed that. And the way we fixed that is just me running some of the plugins I used to run. So I use some stuff that basically acts like a compressor and a leveler to level out our audio levels. You in particular are really, you have a really high dynamic range.
That's right. I do. Yeah. I'm basically 16 bits.
So, sometimes you whisper and sometimes you shout. You do all those in the course of
Sometimes I let it all
podcasts. Out. Yeah, sometimes you do. Most of the time, really.
Typically in summer.
And so, it's more of an issue on your track than mine, but I've set those up in the past because before we had the AI thing, I used a compressor to level it out and stuff. And so it was nice not having to do that because I didn't have to mess as much with the levels and the AI just sort of figured it out. But that's the problem with these AI tools is sometimes they just kind of silently change in the background and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's a little frustrating because like I pay for this tool and
it makes it feel like you can't rely on it.
Yeah, it does. And this is why whenever I use the AI, I still listen to the entire episode. And I missed it on a couple of them. I missed that the levels were kind of all over the place. But you just can't fully trust it. And I'm curious if that's ever going to change. I think for a lot of the creative stuff, it doesn't really matter. If you're using it to generate images or something, like obviously you're looking at them anyway. But, if we think about using AI for editing videos someday, it's like, it sure would be nice if you could just rely on it always working and not necessarily have to check every single little thing it does. But it feels like you really have to.
I'd be so mad if that was like part of my workflow.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden now I have to go back and do something manually that I was relying on being automated for a while, especially if I had like priced it out accordingly to a client.
I mean, like, I don't think this is going to happen, but imagine if like one day the DaVinci Resolve transcription stuff just didn't work anymore. And
So it's me knocking on this wooden table.
yeah, like that would legitimately be a big problem for us doing some of our videos.
I do wonder if the RX tool is going to take that out. Like if people are going to hear that knocking, or they think I'm going to be a crazy person.
Yeah, between the RX and the AI, we'll see if anybody can hear that. But I don't know. It's a bummer. I mean, I think this AI stuff's really cool, and obviously we use it and like it for the podcast. But
Saves you time.
yeah. You don't care, but it saves me time. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it'll get better.
Play the intro.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
Are you familiar with lomography?
I'm not. Besides you mentioning it a few minutes ago, it's like this term that, kind of rung a bell. I think I've heard of it, but I have no idea what it actually is.
They make what do you call it? Film. But that's not the word I was looking for.
Film.
Sorry, it's like a bespoke or unique film.
Is it a unique format? Is it unique colors?
It's like weird stuff. Like very hip or trendy. That's the word I'm looking for. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for.
It's esoteric even for film.
A little bit. So I was under the impression that lomography doesn't make any of their own films. My understanding was that they just repackage other film, because it really is just like Kodak and Fujifilm are making film and no one else is really making film except for now Harman Phoenix, and that's why that was a really big deal, is because they started making like a brand new emulsion. I guess Harman makes Ilford, so like Harman makes film and Kodak and anyways, whatever. But things like Street Candy and Cinestill, they literally buy Vision 500 and they just rip the remjet layer off of it. it's just the same thing, just repackaged.
Yeah, it's like camera sensors.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yep, very much like camera sensors.
Yep, mm-hmm. People just buy the Sony sensor and they rip the backside illumination off.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so there's a new emulsion from lomography. Like they're doing this film thing where they're making new emulsions, and I'm like news in quotes. And so what I've been trying to like dig around for today after I read this article was like, are they actually making new emulsions?
So tell me what an emulsion is. Is that something that you do like in the developing process, or is it part of the raw film? What does that mean?
Oh, geez, Daniel. We're on the ragged edge of how much I understand.
That means we're going to get some emails, which is great.
Hate chemistry.
Any PR is good PR.
Like, I took chemistry in high school and in college. And I wasn't like bad at chemistry. I always got like a B or I don't think I ever got a C in chemistry.
Well, why don't you give us a B or a C level understanding of what emulsion is?
Boy, it's the worst. It's just like you have to know all these things. But anyways, so like you have all the different layers of the film, and then you like have the chemicals that are going to be light sensitive. And my understanding is like the emulsion is the recipe of what those chemicals look like.
So this isn't like the developing process.
No.
It's not the stuff that you're mixing up. This is like on the film.
Yeah, it's the film.
Okay.
And so it's like the film has a certain emulsion, and then you take the pictures, and then you take it and you stick it in a developer and then a fixer, and then it's now done.
Yeah.
And so in that process, like you start with the emulsion, then you do the light sensitive thing, and then you do the developing.
Okay.
So, what I don't understand is like, do they start with like Ultramax 400?
Mm-hmm.
And then they do something weird to it, like rip a layer off, add some. I don't know. I have no idea.
Sure.
But apparently, lomography has come out with a new emulsion, and one of the things that they're doing is they're saying no two emulsions will ever be the same, and so they're doing like limited runs of different emulsions, which I just, like I said, I don't think that they were starting like from scratch. I think they're taking some film stock and they're doing a thing to it, and then they're releasing it. And so they've released a new emulsion it's called Lomochrome Color 92 Sunkissed. Shut up.
So wait, are each of these runs going to be named differently like that?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
I think like what they do is like here's a new Lomochrome. You better buy it now because this is going to be the only run of it, and we're never going to be able to make it again because we didn't write anything down because we don't really care what we're doing. We're just kind of pulling levers.
This is like cooking, where they say the difference between cooking and baking is that, with cooking you season things like to taste, and with baking it's like you gotta nail those proportions or you're gonna have a bad time. These guys are just like throwing a pinch of salt here, you know, some garlic powder there. They're just doing whatever they want, cooking up that film.
Basically.
And you get what you get.
Yeah, you get what you get. They like whip together an emulsion and like, here it is.
Maybe it's a matter I'm kind of into that. I think that's cool.
Maybe it's a matter of like how they're doing it. They don't like it's not a repeatable process. So rather than saying, well, we might as well just not do it, they're leaning into it and saying, I mean, now it's like it's film. It's like there's one thing. Well, then two, it's limited edition.
It just makes you wonder what that process is like, because in some cases, making things perfectly repeatable and reliable is challenging and expensive. So like maybe they just didn't do that step. But then on the other hand, you're like, what are these guys doing in that factory? Like, how are they, you know, what does their process look like to make this stuff and how wild is it? I don't know.
Maybe it's a matter of like, it's like Kickstarter culture, right? Where you can get enough chemicals and you can get enough stuff together and get enough rolls of film that you can do this whatever emulsion thing of like, okay, we've produced 1,000, 10,000 rolls of film. Let's sell them, and then we'll do the next one.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that kind of thing rather than having like an ongoing production, having to deal with that.
That kind of seems like it could be the case.
So anyways, Lomography has a new emulsion out, and it's called Lomochrome Color 92 Sun-Kissed. And you can get it in 35 millimeter or 110, or I think there's a smaller one, like a 16 or something like that.
And so as of this recording, how many of those 35 millimeter rolls have you purchased?
I haven't purchased any yet, Daniel. Yet being the key modifier.
Yes.
I feel
you're thinking about
it. Oh, shoot. It says out of stock already for 92.35. Oh, man.
You're never going to be able to get that again. I mean, do you realize the opportunity you missed? What if that was the perfect film for you?
I don't really love it. It's very like yellowy. Like
not really into sun-kissed then.
I like warm film. I mean, we talked previously. I'll shoot at daylight white balance at night just to make it kind of that cool, like that warm retro-y feeling that you would get out of shooting like a daylight film at night. Shut up.
Exactly like that.
Shut up, Daniel. But looking at the shots off of like the sample shots that they have, it just feels yellow, and the reds are very magenta. And I don't like super love it. It's not really my jam, but what I do love is limited edition film emulsions that I can only shoot one time. Yep. And now I'm really upset seeing that between when I read this article earlier today and now, I can't buy 35 millimeter Lomochrome Color 92 35 millimeter ISO 400.
You're going to have to wait for those guys to cook up another batch and get that.
Which is going to be different.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a different summer. It'll be summer 94. I don't know.
You have to decide which summer you want to wait for, and then be ready to pounce on it as soon as they announce it.
I feel like I'm coming across like a little bit like I'm making fun of these people. 100% into it. And whenever I get around to buying my Pentax 17 when they come back in stock, oh yeah.
I mean, honestly, if your brand is going to be that you make weird film, I feel like having it also be limited edition, every run is different, really kind of adds to it. I think it's a cool idea. I'm
getting better at shooting film, in that we hung out with some friends this weekend and I shot 35 photos.
Yeah, you actually went through basically an entire roll in one weekend, whereas normally that'd be like a month for you.
Yeah, like what I like to do when shooting film is, okay, here's an event or a thing, and I'm gonna pick my film. It's like, here's the look. And I pick whatever film I'm going to shoot it on, pick my camera. If I want it to be like have maximum vibes, I might shoot it on my Minolta.
Your vibe cam.
But if I want it to be maybe a little cleaner and have less vibes, I'll shoot it on the AE1. Yeah.
And when you say that this is how you do it, what you mean is that this is how you would like to do it, but this is not how you have actually done it, because you haven't really succeeded in shooting an entire roll of film for one event until very recently.
Yeah, right? It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to like really pace yourself. Like it's like running a marathon. Mm-hmm. Like you got to get out there, and you can't sprint to the beginning and take all your pictures first. You can't save them all for the end. Yep. Or else you're going to get like, you got to pace yourself. You got to know when you're going to take those pictures, and just kind of work it through. And I feel like I nailed it. Like for half a day Friday, all day Saturday, and most of the day Sunday, I got through 35 pictures, and I feel like I did it. And so I'm going to develop those as a test roll before I develop my Europe film.
Yeah, because you want to make sure the chemicals are good, right?
Yep, exactly. And if they're not good, then I'm going to just get someone else to develop some other pictures and then buy more chemicals later.
Okay.
But I'm super happy with myself. I'm starting to get the hang of it.
Yeah.
And whenever I buy a half frame camera, it's going to make it even harder.
Yep. I do think maybe this is a good time to mention, a couple weeks ago, we talked about that Pentax 17, and you said that you hoped they would, you hoped it would be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have even said that you hoped they would sell out.
Yep.
And they did sell out.
I'm so happy about that.
Yep. I think I saw that they were thinking about making more of them or something.
Wait, thinking about it? Like they may not?
Well, I don't, you know how these things are.
So help me, Daniel.
It sounded like they probably were going to, but I mean, I guess the headline of the story was the thrust of it was basically like they're going to have to make more than they originally intended to because the pre-orders have sold out. So good news for them.
We're like 2.5 months from my birthday, and I'm already starting to drop hints that, maybe a Pentax 17 would be the perfect birthday gift for one Lucas.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully they'll reopen those pre-orders then.
I guess we'll find out.
Yep.
Man, would I be upset? I'd have to settle for finding a Pen F somewhere.
Yep.
Woof. Anyway, what else is on the list here?
So we talk about more modern things.
Yeah, sure.
Well, so one thing that I mentioned to you a while back was, the idea of wanting to be able to display more of my pictures. And I think I came up with this from, we went on this big trip to Europe, took a lot of pictures. And I mean, I'm a pretty big fan of printing stuff out and, having it displayed on the wall. And I've got pictures in my house, that I took. And I really like looking at those. But when you go on a trip and, you take a ton of pictures, or any, after living life for a while, you just have lots of pictures. And I don't know, it made me think it'd be cool to be able to just see those more regularly. And I mean, digital picture frames have existed for a long time, but what kind of bothers me is that they're all really small. Like you get one, it's like a little 8-inch screen, that sits on your desk. And I don't know. I mean, I want pictures to be big,
Oh yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And it's surprisingly hard to find good options for that. So one thing that came to mind was Samsung makes this TV, the Frame TV.
Boo.
That it comes with a wooden frame and has a matte screen, and it's supposed to look like artwork when it's on your wall, but it's also a TV. And so like it's this thing that looks good in your house, but you can show pictures on it or watch TV on it if you want to. And so that seems like an option. And then you told me about this other thing, which was made by Cambia. I think that's what it is.
No, it's Canvia. I can't type.
Okay. And you
commonly unknown. The B and the V next to each other on the keyboard.
Huh. You're right. How about that?
Look at that. I know you don't usually look at the keyboard when you type, so you probably didn't know that.
No, certainly not. Totally pro over here.
Yep.
But I think you said that you have one of those at your office.
Yeah. So at the office where I work, we have both a Canvia and a Samsung frame.
Oh.
I am very well qualified to answer any questions that you want to know about these.
Well, tell me what you think.
The frame is terrible and stupid, and it's stupid. Like it looks like a TV. I've seen some frames installed. Like we have a friend who has one, and it looks legit and looks fine in a well lit room. But if the room is not well lit, it just looks like a bad TV.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a mediocre 5 out of 10 LCD.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you load your own, they want you to buy the Samsung pictures or the Samsung frame artwork that's like specifically whatever for the thing. I've loaded my own custom pictures on there because lol, and I had to take them off, but that's fine. Anyways,
I'm not going to ask what these were pictures of because
they were all wonderful pictures. Anyways, I've loaded my own pictures on there, and by default, it'll decide whether or not it wants to put them on a mat, and so it makes a fake mat with a fake bevel of the mat to make it look. It looks really stupid.
Yeah,
you have to individually configure whether or not each artwork has a mat or not. You can't just say every picture that I want to show on this, don't mat it. Nope, can't do that. So if you're wanting to display lots of pictures, oh boy.
Yeah, and I mean, this is basically what I had heard about the frame is like the concept is pretty good. I think you can mount it in a way that looks nice,
sure,
compared to a regular TV, but it's just like everything else with Samsung where the software really drags it down. And I mean, that's my problem is that I want to get something that I can point at a photo album that has 1,000 pictures in it and have it just rotate through them, and just do something that looks good for all of them. And yeah, I mean, everything I've seen is like, you can only load like 100 pictures before you run out of internal memory on it. And yeah, you've got to configure everything manually, and it just doesn't seem like the right choice.
And you want to load them, because if you do, then you can use the Samsung Frame whatever software where it's like, if there's motion in the room, turn the TV on.
Yeah.
So that now you can start cycling through the pictures and whatever during these times of days, turn it off, but then don't turn it back on until you see motion. Or if there's no motion, then like you can do those screensaver
but
functions.
The only way
like
you can do that, the only way you can do that is if you load the pictures in this weird way.
So because like what I do is like my TV at home, I have linked to, I use Android, whatever, Google Chromecast TV, whatever. Yeah. And so all my photos are in Google Photos. So I just set one of the albums, like our trip is one of the albums now for that photo. And so whenever that goes into screensaver, I can manually put it in screensaver.
Yeah.
It just goes to the pictures.
Yeah. So you basically just like you leave your TV on when you're, at night at home, and you just let it rotate through.
Yeah. Occasionally, or like if I just want the pictures to be on, it'll rotate through, and it works, and it's great, and I like it. But like another thing, because Vizio is stupid, don't buy Vizio TV. It's just the software. They released a software update that now it has a screensaver, and there's no way to turn the screensaver off.
That doesn't make sense.
And so sometimes it'll decide, I think I've been on too long and I need to be a screensaver, and then it'll just throw the Vizio logo up and bounce around for like 20 minutes. And it's garbage.
That's annoying. Yeah.
And so like that's the thing with the Samsung is like, if you went that route and you brought like a Chromecast or a Apple TV and you wanted to use that for your rotating photos, then now you're having to rely on that kind of managing all the input and turning on and off, and you can't use like the smart features of the sensor and whatever. So
it's just frustrating because in some ways it feels like the product that is made for this, but they just didn't quite hit the mark.
So we do have the Camvia digital art frame as well, and that one's expensive. I'm looking at
I think it's like $250 maybe.
Yeah.
And it's quite a bit smaller than a TV.
Mm-hmm. And it's maybe it's a similar resolution. Like I'm looking at this 1080p one that is $521.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't seem to see the dimensions. I think it's similar to like an 18 by 10 size picture, like or a 24 by 18. That's what
it's just frustrating because it's like a few $100s more. You can get a 43-inch TV.
Yeah, it kind of depends on like what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. I think that the display on the Camvia, with like the way that it's matte and the way that it balances the color, it's maybe a little nicer. It's obvious that it's a backlit LCD whenever the lights get dimmer than the screen itself. So like at night, it's kind of like obvious. But otherwise, that one works out pretty well and really feels more like a picture on a wall.
Okay.
And it's picture sized.
Yeah.
Like a Samsung frame is a 16 by 9 giant block on the wall, whereas this one looks more like a appropriately sized picture with an actual mat around it. Mm-hmm. And
how does it look if does it look weird if the photo's not the right aspect ratio? What does it do?
Yeah, you want it to, I think that you have the option to like fill or set or whatever, but ideally what you would want is to like load your artwork onto this that is of the right aspect ratio. I think the people that are using something like a Canvia are like in Lightroom cropping things to the exact right size. It's not necessarily
you're going to pick 15 pictures you want to put on there. You're not just throwing this at your thousands of photos,
which is not unlike the frame. Both of these are really geared towards not I want to see all 10,000 of my pictures rotate through eventually, and I just want to be able to throw them on there. It's more of, I've selected these 50 pictures, which are my best pictures, and I want to display them like art and have them rotate through once or twice a day.
I think there's probably, clearly both these products are aimed at that. I think that's probably a very legitimate way to go about it, and I think a lot of people that are into photography probably do that, where they have, these are my favorite pictures. And I think for me, that's just not really what I'm looking for, because I don't always want to have to think about that. And kind of my point in going this route is that I want a chance to enjoy all the pictures I've taken, even if I'm not taking the time to curate these very specific sets of them.
I would say, unfortunately, I think the frame is probably the better choice between the two for you. Well, but just because and then running something through it.
I kind of wonder if I should just get a regular TV then.
But I think that it's more of like a border and like physical dimension thing. Like if you could find something that is very slim and like easily wall mountable that you could conceal like an Apple TV, then that's probably the way to go. Or if you found something that would have, no. Even if you have Apple TV built in, you wouldn't get the screensaver thing, which is what you're looking for. Yeah. You want the photo screensaver.
Yeah.
The one thing that's really, really annoying about those Canvia frames is that they are controlled by waving your hand. Like there's a sensor.
Like a Jedi type thing?
Yeah, like there's a sensor below it, and you have to like wave your hand in a certain area in a certain way, and it's not really good at picking you up, and so you just kind of look like an idiot flapping your hand around in front of it, trying to like make it do the thing. It's really horrible.
So you probably know that somebody else in your office has the clicky remote for that thing, and they just told you that it uses hand controls.
What? No, like legit uses hand controls.
They wait until you go up to it and start waving your hands around, and then they just very occasionally press a button on that remote.
No, I've done it when I was the only one there because I was like, "This, I'm going to change this picture now." I've tried to load my own pictures onto that, but you have to. It's locked down.
I think they probably did that based on your experience with the frame.
No, this was before the frame. Anyway,
well, so, if anyone listening to this knows of another good option for a large picture frame that does what I'm looking for.
How large are we talking, Daniel?
I've got this blank wall that's right next to my desk. I mean, it's a full-on wall that doesn't have anything on it. I want that thing filled with a screen. Like if I was buying a TV, I would put a 43-inch screen up there.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah. And, get like a 4K. You can get a 4K 43-inch LCD TV for like $200. Like,
what if you just
cheap?
Like OLEDs are really, really thin. What if you just went for broken? God,
I mean, honestly, even OLED, like you can get an LG A2 or something for like $500-$600. Same price as that can be a thing.
I bet you could do that and then mount it in its own frame. Like you could put it in a frame.
Yeah, you could just buy the, people make picture frames. Just buy the stuff and do it.
Yep.
Maybe I should do that.
Maybe you should.
I don't know. Something to think about. But if anyone knows of other options that we haven't talked about, then please send us an email because I'd like to figure this out.
Okay, Daniel. I mean, I started my stopwatch late here, and we are like super deep into this, and we have to get into the C400 because this is the C400 super episode.
Oh man, but it's the super episode, we've got to get going.
Yeah, I know. But there's one more very important update that I have for you.
Okay.
In a more recent podcast where we talked about the Nikon Z6 Mark III, I had discussed that I was really worried about how my father was going to take to the flippy screen.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, so he told me about it.
Wait. When he told you about it, did he explain the feature to you as though it's something you've never seen or used before?
Yes.
I love that I got that right.
It's like, my dad. He's like, how like normally like screens like this and what like literally described it. I tried to stop him and I was like,
you're like, Dad, I have a camera podcast.
I know. I understand. So what he's really happy about is that you can, and he explained this being in brutal detail. You can flip the screen out, turn it over, and then flip it back.
Wait, can you explain that one more time?
Yeah, so Daniel, this is one per my dad here. Normally, the screen is facing you, right? So you have like a screen on the back of your camera. It could get scratched.
Sure.
You're just tucking it. You're like on an adventure.
Yeah, life happens.
You're on a cruise ship. I don't know. You're in the wilderness, wrestling alligators or bears. Could get scratched. You flip it out, like flips out like a wing.
Sure.
Turn it around.
Okay.
Flip it back.
Oh.
Screen's now on the inside. Can't see it anymore.
That's a good trick.
Protect from the scratches.
Huh.
Yeah.
And then you can still, if you want to take a picture, you can still use the EVF.
Yeah, you just use the EVF.
Wow.
And if you want to look at him, you can flip him out.
So he likes that?
He was really into it.
Oh, man.
He was very pumped about the fact that he can conceal the screen. And I was like, oh, this makes sense because I had postulated last time. Maybe he's pretty much just only an EVF shooter.
Yeah.
Because he's shot like 1972 to 2003 without using a digital viewfinder. Yeah. So,
well, and also on that Z6 Mark III, that EVF's like 4,000 nits. So now he probably is just like physically incapable of viewing any other screen.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, he's super spoiled.
Yeah.
Also, like it's so bright that it's blinded him to dimmer displays.
Yeah, exactly. He can't, everything just looks like an off screen to him now, except for that EVF.
Yeah, no, that checks out. Yep, that's absolutely true. And so turns out I was a little worried it wasn't going to be good, And my dad is on Team Flippy Screen. So
now we know.
That's the feedback there.
Also going to be great if he ever starts vlogging.
Yeah, no, we're really good. Really, really good.
So speaking of vlogging, C400 super episode.
Okay, Daniel. So I've learned everything there is to learn about the C400.
Oh.
And
that is more than me.
I don't know what to do with this information.
Yeah. Well, let's start with this camera, I don't remember when this was announced. At this point, it's like a month or two ago.
Yeah, it was a little while back.
And people seemed excited. So, I mean, like big picture, what is it?
Can you buy a C400 from B&H right now? It is coming soon still. So it's still in pre-order. B&H just flags pre-order when things are sold out. So this is not exactly out yet. We don't have like full production things. So a lot of the information on this is like what Canon released, and then some reviewers had the opportunity to do some testing.
Okay.
But the C400 seems to be an exact replacement for the C500 Mark II and the C300 Mark II.
Okay, so it's a Canon cinema camera, and it's like in that higher end, I mean, not like, when I say higher end, it's not like Burano higher end, but it's like for Canon cinema line, it's pretty high.
Right. So for the price point, puts it exactly in the category of cameras that it is intended to serve, which is $8,000.
Okay.
So it is cheaper than a Komodo X. It is more expensive than an FX6, but less expensive than an FX9. It is, I think, more expensive than a C300 Mark II and less expensive than a C500 Mark II.
Okay.
But if you're looking for a Canon full frame cinema camera, your options were, I think, the C500 Mark II and the R5C.
Which is a pretty big range, because the R5C is what, like, is it $5,000 or is it $3,500?
Yeah, it was like $5,000.
Somewhere in there. And then the C500 Mark III is probably like 15-ish, maybe something like that. And I think this one kind of slots in between those price-wise.
Right. I think you can get a used C500 Mark. That's maybe Mark II. Anyways, I don't know what the C500 Mark II runs for right now.
Okay.
3? 2. 3. It's the 500 II and the 300 Mark III. Sorry. Anyway, this, like, usually those that were released together, they kind of like come in a pair of like, here's the high end, here's the low end. It feels like Canon maybe doesn't seem to think that there is room for both. So now they're releasing one camera that kind of meets both needs.
Yeah.
And those needs are people who need like an all-in-one quote unquote cinema camera solution, or like professional video camera solution. I don't think a lot of people are shooting films on these.
Yeah,
It's
always seemed like documentaries, run and gun videography, that sort of thing.
Documentaries, commercials, broadcast, anything that's like not a movie, which is like so many things. And this is like a pretty cool camera. And depending upon like how you look at it and what your needs are, some people are saying, man, why would you buy a Burano when you could buy this for a third the price?
Yeah,
which is,
it's a big difference.
Calm down, everybody. But like it is kind of interesting where it falls, within the cinema landscape, and it really comes down to like, what do you need?
I think that this is a pretty cool product segment, and for the types of videos that we've shot, this like class of camera feels kind of like the ideal, like if we had unlimited funds, and wanted to invest a lot, because it's not, you're not going to have to rig it out as much as you would a cinema camera. Like, you don't need somebody pulling focus or whatever, but you're getting some features that you wouldn't get on an X-H2S.
Right. Yeah. If you're moving into filmmaking, like I'm going to make my first indie film, I think at that point you shoot with whatever you can get your paws on, right?
Sure.
Like maybe you rent something, maybe you rent some lenses, but I mean, you can shoot that on an FX3 or an FX30 or an X-H2S, or, like whatever you have. But like, if you're going to graduate into something, you're going to graduate into renting something like a Venice, maybe not a Venice, well, like maybe a Komodo or like a V Raptor or something. That's maybe lower cost, but like you're gonna maybe get into renting or doing like hiring somebody who can do those shoots. But like if you're graduating into doing more like not filmmaking things, it feels like the C400 line and those lines of cameras are the exact step up from your hybrid mirrorless.
Yeah, I think so.
Where you start needing things like time code and gen lock and like multiple audio inputs and just like more like premium production level features. And you don't want to have to get into, like, if you buy a V Raptor, you have to buy the camera, then you have to buy like the monitor and the handle and like everything that goes with it. If you buy a C400, $8,000, you get the camera, the handle, the grip, like the top handle, the side grip, the LC monitor, all the cables that go with it, and like the body caps and the wrenches and a battery and a charger.
So you're like ready to go.
You have everything you need
Mm-hmm.
except for like the CF Express card.
Sure.
It's like that's it. You're 100% in. I mean, it's you buy anything else that's not like you're gonna have to like rig the whole thing out. And so it's $8,000, but it's $8,000 with $2,000 of accessories.
Sure. Yeah,
So
I can see the appeal.
Right.
No
It's,
doubt.
yeah. It's just kind of like that exact step up. Like if you're coming from an R5 or like, I don't know, maybe an A1
Mm-hmm.
and you're just kind of like making that extra step up. Realistically, you're coming from a Canon camera. You're not coming from
I was going
to
to say, I mean, yeah, because that kind of leads into a major aspect of this is that it's one of only two or three maybe RF mount cinema cameras.
Right.
So you've got the R5C, the C70, which is not full frame,
right.
and this camera. And so
That's basically it.
Makes a lot of sense if you're coming from anything Canon, because you probably already have some lenses. RF lenses are super expensive, but you could use them on this.
Yeah, there's some older like EF mount or Canon cinema cameras that people are still using.
Sure.
The C700 has gotten pretty old, but with the change to mirrorless and the change to RF lenses, it really felt like the Canon cinema line was falling behind. And if you were heavily invested in RF glass and you shoot with Canon and maybe you had an R5C and you're looking for the next step up, or like you're missing some of those features, you didn't really have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And so this coming out is really important for Canon's line, and it kind of fills out more of that mid-level, high-level, mid-high level video need.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, at the price, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the features though. Like we mentioned RF mount, we mentioned full frame. What does this do?
Okay. It shoots video, Daniel.
Oh, well, that explains a lot actually.
Yeah, so,
I was thinking I could shoot my lomography, film on it.
yeah, definitely can't do that. It can take pictures though. So if you really need to take pictures, you can definitely do that.
So when we get to the end of the year and need to pick the best photo camera, I can put this on my list.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Okay.
I do think that where this lands is it's a comparison between an FX6 and like an Ursa. Can you get a full frame Ursa right now? Not yet.
No, I think that's the Ursa Cine.
Yeah.
It's not out yet.
Anyways, it's coming though. So like I think it's gonna land like right in that window.
Okay.
Anyway, okay. So this thing is like it's basically like a cube that's 5 inches by like 5.3 by 5.3 by 5.6, right? So it's a box camera. That size makes it a little smaller than a Burano. It's bigger than an FX3. It's bigger than a Komodo, almost by like a whole inch in each dimension. So it's not like super, super tiny. It comes in around like 3.4 pounds. So it's not super, super light. It is light enough that you can run it on an RS4 like DJI gimbal. You could slap it on a gimbal, and then you can take the Rosetta handle off of it, and you can put that on your gimbal if you want to. You can take the monitor off of it because the monitor. So they changed the way the monitor mounts from the previous like C300, C500, and they went to a 15 millimeter rail mount, which is like more common standard.
Yeah, very standardized.
Yeah, so you can mount that on your gimbal. Like you can put those things on it, so you're just running the body on the gimbal, and then it's like light enough under that whatever 5-6 pound limit. So it's small enough to do those handheld gimbal-y things if you really, really have to, which maybe like that's a little ridiculous. Maybe not. I don't know. Depends on your workflow, but not the smallest camera. I like the size of those Komodo X's. Those are nice and tiny, like real compact. But I think it's good. It makes total sense as far as like size and weight for what it is. The big, obviously, standout feature here is the sensor that's in this thing. It is a full frame 6K stacked backside illuminated sensor.
Oh wow! So it's fully stacked and it's full frame. There's not that many cameras that have that.
Right. Yeah. So very few cameras that are coming out stacked. I mean, for video, it's like for the cinema camera, you really are push for that global, but there's very few globals out there. This coming in stacked is really exciting. It's not as fast as some stacked sensors we're seeing. For instance, the 6K partially stacked sensor in the Nikon Z6 Mark III, which is a DSLR, not DSLR, but it's a mirrorless style camera, that reads faster than this camera.
Interesting.
But it's not slow. Like this thing, I think that it reads somewhere in the like full frame mode, 13 milliseconds.
Yeah, that's pretty
Super
good.
35 mode, like 8 milliseconds, right? So it's like, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's fast enough. It's maybe a little slower than an FX3. or an FX6,
Okay.
but it's way faster than something like a Burano that's like
Interesting.
17 milliseconds. So
Okay.
it's good. Like it's really good rolling shutter
Yeah.
for what it is.
Well, and I mean, I'm going to cut it a little bit of slack compared to the Z6 Mark III, because when we talked about that camera, it seemed like maybe it was lacking a little bit in dynamic range. And I'm assuming for a cinema camera, they really would not have wanted to compromise there.
Yeah, so this does actually lack in the dynamic range department a little bit, but it's not bad, right? It just kind of depends upon what you're comparing to, because you're in the $8,000 price point bracket, right? So you're comparing yourself to FX6s and FX9s and that sort of thing. And this thing shoots Cinema Raw Lite, which is a 12-bit RAW codec. And so that means like you're only getting 12 bits of like color and sensor information. You know, something like a red RAW is going to be 16 bits. So you're just going to get a lot more color fidelity, a lot more dynamic range out of it. This does obviously shoot in a log. It's a logarithmic RAW profile. So you can get C-Log2 because you're shooting in RAW, you can actually pick your log profile after the fact. And so like you can, when you process it, you can say, I want this to be C-Log2 or C-Log3.
Sure.
And as a result of those being logged, you can get up to like 16 stops of dynamic range according to Canon, which means realistically you're going to get in practice probably 14 stops with maybe a little bit that you can recover here or there. So it's not like out of this world, but it is as good as any top end like mirrorless option, and it's not going to compete with the likes of like a Venice or a Red Raptor or an Airy.
Yeah,
like it's not in that class of camera.
I mean, it's good to be aware of. It's not. I don't think we should hold that against it, but yeah,
no, I wouldn't worry about it too much. So I said this is full frame. That sensor is, I think it's like 36 by 19 or 36 by 18.
Okay,
it's not your traditional or 36 by 24 sensor size. It is shorter, and no, it's not shorter. It's taller. Well, it's shorter than, but taller than. Right, but the aspect ratio is like 1.4 to 1.
Interesting.
Instead of like 1.3 to 1. No, 1.5 to 1 would be 3 by 2. So it's shorter than taller than a 3 by 2.
So regardless, you probably
shorter, because
you don't get any kind of like open gate type thing. Then
you can't. You don't get. There's no open gate on this. It just shoots. It shoots 16 by 9 or 17 by 9 DCI.
Okay.
So a little shorter if it's 36 by 19. And then it's not quite as big as a V-Raptor. I mean, I wouldn't really necessarily compare this to a V-Raptor because of the price point, but a V-Raptor is like like a 40 point or 41 millimeter diagonal. And this is like a 40 or something. Okay. Or like 46 versus 40. That's what it is. Okay. So smaller sensor than like your slightly larger, like your large format cinema cameras. Yeah. This is more closer to a chopped off full frame sensor size, if that makes sense.
Okay.
That was just like a lot of numbers and a lot of jabbering.
It sure was.
Anyway, we're talking 26 megapixels. Depending upon which mode you're shooting in, it's basically 19 megapixels effectively. And
I mean, these, any video-oriented camera always has a lower megapixel sensor than what you'd see on like a mirrorless camera, because you just don't need it for video.
Right. But also, like you said, it's like this sensor literally has 26 million pixels, but depending upon what mode you're shooting in, what resolution you're shooting in, yes, it's oversampling, but the final output may be like a 19 megapixel image or even smaller than that. And it just kind of depends upon what resolution you're shooting in. So because this thing is stacked, it can shoot full width in oversampled mode for a lot of different modes. You can shoot 4K 60 oversampled. You can shoot 4K 120 oversampled, but you lose autofocus. Or you can shoot like full 6K up to 60p. Like you have all of these different really good frame rate options because you have that stack sensor.
I appreciate that that's the case, because there have been some other ones we've talked about. Like, I don't remember if the Burano had this particular problem or not. I think it does, but there's so many cameras where it's like, yes, you can shoot in all these frame rates and resolutions, but everything has a weird crop. And it's, you have to memorize all these different things or just expect that your framing is going to change every time. And I like seeing that you can pick what you want and it's going to, you're going to get the same field of view every time.
Okay, yeah, I found my notes here. It is 4K up to 120 oversampled, which is great. Like you're not going to see your frame change even if you get into some of those S&Q modes. And it does have, slow and fast, not slow and quick. I think they use a different terminology than Sony. But if you are going to shoot in like an S&Q mode, you can run it down to below your frame rate. So you can
Nice.
shoot down to 1 frame per second,
Yeah,
which is really
that's
nice.
something that you see on cinema cameras. You don't usually see it on mirrorless cameras.
Yep. And then I think that it has some modes that'll shoot up to like 240 frames per second.
Nice.
So it kind of has all of the frame rates and everything that you would need. You can get the full width of the sensor for basically any mode. And if you're shooting under 60 frames per second, you get the dual pixel autofocus stuff.
Oh.
So with like face tracking and human tracking
Yeah.
and dog
And
detection.
Canon's autofocus is so good. I think that fits the use of this camera pretty well if you're doing like a documentary or something.
Absolutely. It doesn't have car detection, which is kind of dumb. People were a little upset about car and airplane missing,
yeah.
and the animal seems to be only for dogs and cats, not like birds. So it is a little limited compared to the dual pixel AF in their photo cameras.
Yeah.
But ideally, with firmware updates, this thing is improved over time.
We can hope.
We can hope. So that's all really cool already. But that's like not even the highlight feature here, Daniel.
What is the highlight feature?
It has a triple base ISO.
We've never seen that before, right? We've seen dual.
Yeah,
dual native.
dual base ISO is common enough. This is not dual gain. So the C70 has a dual gain sensor. It can capture at different gains, and then you can like combine the images or get like more dynamic range or whatever.
Yeah.
This is native ISO. So like whenever you're in the cinema world, especially like if you're shooting raw or raw light, essentially what happens is like you pick your base ISO, and that's the gain of the sensor at like a certain sensitivity. And so like at like 6 dB or something, or not dB, but you could run like 800, 3200 or 12800.
So interesting.
And so it's like the same noise level, exactly the same noise level at each of these ISOs. And then you're able to adjust it within a range off of that ISO after the fact. So it's like if you're shooting in raw, if you shoot at like base ISO 3200, you might have a range, 5 stops below or 5 stops above that you can kind of work it.
Yeah.
And then 32 is going to work. Yeah. And 32 is going to be like your cleanest slot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like you're not going to get down to like 400 off of a 3200 base. So you still kind of have to pick based on where you're shooting.
It's nice that you get a little bit of latitude though.
Yeah, I mean you're going to get a lot of latitude just because it's raw, and so that's nice. And it's nice that you can get these clean ISO options.
Yeah.
And normally what we're seeing is like a base ISO maybe like 640 or 1000, or you may see on the second base ISO is maybe like 6400 or something. Or if you're looking at like the low light King, the FX3,
the low light King,
it's like it'll have I think like 800 or something, and then or like 1600 or whatever, and then 12,800. So you have this really really high second base ISO, but then you're stuck in the middle where like if you want to shoot something at like 6400, it just looks worse, and it's better. You're better to like go up, but now you have like way too bright of a sensor, and so it's this weird compromise where if you need to shoot in really low dark, like low light scenarios, then you don't have the mid range that you need.
Oh, weird.
And so what's super cool about the C400 is that they have 3 base ISOs.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's not just a marketing bullet point. It's like they did it for a reason, and maybe that gives you a little bit better dynamic range, like all through the range rather than like the extremes. So cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you can get the really good low light performance out of this camera. Like this is going to be one of the very good low light cameras. It's full frame. It has a base ISO at 12,800. And then, but also you're not sacrificing the mid range. And then depending upon like what you're shooting in, if you're shooting in raw, that's going to be 800, 3200, and 12,800. But if you shoot in like a Rec 709 profile, those base ISOs are actually stopped down one more stop. So like it drops the gain on the sensor a little bit and then adds some noise reduction to kind of like push that noise down.
Okay.
And so if you're shooting in like a 709 profile, your bases are going to be 400, 1600, and 6400. And so like depending upon what you're doing, if you know you don't need that post-processing workflow of raw, you can get like a lower ISO or a different noise profile.
Interesting. That's I mean, that's another one of those kind of features where it's like you're going to have to kind of know how your camera works and figure that out, but it's cool to have those options. And I mean, it seems like they implemented that pretty well.
I do think that it kind of like the way it'll kind of coax you into the right modes. Like if you're shooting in raw, you basically get you like pick one of these 3 ISOs and that's it. Versus like if you're going to shoot in a Rec 709 profile, you kind of treat it like a normal camera basically and kind of run through your ISOs. Yeah, so that's most of the really cool stuff about the sensor itself. It's a pretty cool sensor, pretty cool that it's stacked, pretty cool that it's backside. It's going to be a really good low light camera, which I think really fits what this is for, which is like maybe you're shooting some broadcast stuff, maybe you're recording a concert, maybe you're doing documentary and you need to have a really wide range of ability or capability for the camera because you're shooting a lot of different scenarios. And it's like it's exactly like who this is for, right? It's got autofocus, it's got a very capable system.
Now, does it have IBIS?
No.
Okay.
It does not have IBIS.
But it weighs 3.4 pounds, so maybe you don't need it.
Yeah. So if you look at Canon's website, they'll say it has like in-body stabilization or something. And what it really means is that it has electronic stabilization where it crops in like 1.1 times and then it combos with
it's not the same thing.
But it combos with the lens stabilization. So if you have lens IS and EIS in the camera, then it's basically stabilization.
It's not in-body stabilization. It's not the same thing.
It's just like it's like asterisk,
Yeah,
but like it works pretty good.
I mean, I'm not complaining. It's a cinema camera.
Yeah.
It should not, like, it arguably should not have IBIS. So
yeah, for something like this, I really don't think you need it.
Yeah.
If you need it, like maybe the Burano is more for you because like that was a big selling point of that one was the IBIS.
Sure,
I don't think it's needed here.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. I feel like I need to like lightning round the rest of these features because there's still like so much we haven't got to. So I'm just gonna like pound through this, and I need you to give me like your thoughts on each one as we roll.
Okay.
Okay.
I will if I have thoughts on them.
Obviously, it has like shutter angle, time code, gen lock.
Would have been angry if it hadn't.
Yeah, that would have been really weird. So it takes the same-ish batteries as the C300, which are these like
BP something.
Yeah, BP whatever. But these have a new version of that battery that has like an A on the end or an N on the end. And they are slightly different in that like they have the same connector, but they have different power output.
Yeah, I mean Fuji's done that with their batteries too. So
if you don't use the new battery, then the hot shoe pass through for the top handle and the front focus system thing doesn't work.
Weird limitation there.
Yeah, so like those two features, which we didn't talk about, on the front there's a connector to run the servos for if you have like a servo lens from Canon.
Nice. That's a good feature.
Yeah, so cool. That's a broadcast thing. And then the top handle has a hot shoe on it, but the camera has a hot shoe on it. And if you put the top handle on the top of the camera, it passes through from one hot shoe to the other. So you get all the hot shoe features like the mic in, audio,
Very
stuff.
Cool.
And,
yeah, I like that.
Super neat. Dual card slot. Has CF Express and SD.
Well, that's for those photos you're going to take, right?
Sure.
You need SD for all those pictures.
You can shoot RAW and proxy simultaneously, so you can shoot H.264 and RAW SD CF Express.
Now let me ask you, so proxy's cool. Can you shoot like pretty good quality video in H.264, H.265?
Yeah, you can shoot decent codecs from there.
Okay, because I mean that's something that really upset me about the Blackmagic stuff, is that they basically don't have an H.265 option. And for any kind of like run and gun, like quick delivery stuff, like I may not always want to shoot in RAW.
Right.
So I think it's nice to have the choice.
It's definitely nice. And I think that it's like, I don't think they have H.265. I think they have H.264 and then like this MXF or something, which is a slightly different packaging of a 10-bit codec, basically. Yeah. So what else is on my list here? They have 112G SDI, 13G SDI, and an HDMI output. So you have a lot of options.
Nice to have HDMI.
And you can use the HDMI for your video feed for your monitor if you would like to, and get like all the menus on it, or run clean feed, or you can run clean feed out. But the main monitor is USB-C. And so you can have USB-C to power the monitor and send video feed.
Yeah, Blackmagic does this too on the Pixis and on the Ursa Cine.
It seems like a new thing that cameras are doing. Right now, you are locked into only Canon monitors, but they have said that they're thinking about opening it up so that you could use something like the small rig or the Blackmagic monitor.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, could be pretty good. It has Ethernet and Wi-Fi. So you can do like your 2 cloud options or like use for like syncing and broadcast and that sort of thing.
Cool.
Obviously, you can like load in your own custom LUTs or bake in a LUT or whatever.
I don't know if anybody's going to be able to hear this, but there is a puppy freaking out in the background. So we'll see how good RX is.
Yeah, this is going to be a good test of your systems.
Yeah.
So it's RF mount, which we've already mentioned.
Yes.
But it has 4 screws on it. And so
So what do you do with 4 screws? I see you can like bolt a adapter onto it.
Right. So from Canon, you can buy a PL mount, or an EF mount adapter, or the PL's coming, but they have EF right now, where like you just basically put a lens adapter on there, but then you can bolt it to the front of the camera. So whereas we normally would see people provide replaceable mounts, they're not doing that, but they're letting you screw the adapter into the camera.
I'm fine with that as an alternative.
Yeah, I think it works out pretty good, and you basically get the best of, like, you have RF, so you can shoot with like those Cooke SP lenses, or you can shoot with the new RF Canon Cine lenses, or you can do an adapt and shoot with like EF, or you can shoot with, you know, your PL Cine lenses or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That's cool.
You basically have most of the range of camera lenses that you need to use here.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
Do we get and we definitely get puppy noises here. Do we get an ND on this camera?
Yes. You get an actual optical ND. That's basically the same ND out of the C300, I think. And so you get 0, 2, and 6 stops. The 0 stop is clear so that you don't get any color shifting between the filters. And then you get a 10 stop extended range, which may cause some focus issues with manual lenses because it adjusts your rear back focus whenever you drop it in.
Weird.
Because it's like a thick piece of glass, right?
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it seems like this performs a lot better than that electronic ND and the Burano.
Yeah, I mean, it sure sounds like it. I think the electronic was a good idea, but it just seems like maybe the technology's not quite there yet. Whereas optical's pretty well known.
Yeah, it's basically it's proven and it's good, and so it's gonna be decent.
Yeah.
So cool that it has the internal NDs. It has basically all the audio features. I was hoping that they would put like a 32-bit audio driver or something, or release a module that can do 32-bit for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was not anywhere in this. It basically does 24-bit. There was a question if like on the C70 where it might drop to 16-bit in certain record modes. That has not been. I have not found anything clearly one way or the other on that, but I do know that it can do up to 24-bit.
Yeah, okay.
There's maybe some, or I can get your thought on it. It has 2 XLR inputs and a 3.5 input, but the XLRs are mini XLR.
I mean, on a camera like this, it's like you guys probably had enough room for a full size, but of all things to be upset about, I'm not going to spend too much energy getting upset about that. You can just get an adapter, so fine.
Cool. I think that was basically everything on my list. Oh, it has a digital teleconverter. So you can do like basically crop modes, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3.
Yeah, that's probably good for run and gun.
It supports anamorphic, but in like the stupidest way possible. It basically only supports 2, 1.8, and 1.3, and those are the only setting options. Mm-hmm. So like you can't like shoot with your nanomorphs in Super 35 mode.
Yeah, that's annoying. Maybe they could add that in firmware, but I don't know if they'd bother.
Yeah, I don't know if they would either. I don't think a lot of people are shooting anamorphic on this camera. I don't think that's what it's being used or purchased for.
I agree.
I really think it's for commercials and documentaries and broadcasts and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm looking through my list. I think I did it, Daniel. I think I got through all of the things. Let's start with what it came for.
Quite a bit there.
It's a lot. It feels like this is a Swiss Army knife. Basically, do all the things you probably need out of this price point camera.
I mean, honestly, for me, the only real detractor to it is RF mount. Like, besides that, I mean, I'm not saying I want to spend $8,000 on a camera right now, but besides the RF mount, everything else, I'm like, this sounds great. This sounds like it would be a good choice for doing documentary type stuff, and I just don't know that I really want to invest in RF.
I don't even see that as too much of an issue because you can get most like cine glass or glasses you're going to want to use in EF or PL.
And I guess you just get an adapter, screw it on the front.
And Canon is coming out with these new hybrid lenses that are supposed to be like for video or for photo. And there's only 2 of them. With this camera, they released a 35 1.4, which we'll have to talk about later. Mm-hmm. But they also have the 24 to 105 2.8.
Okay.
Which would be a really great lens option for this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so like you have decent RF mount lenses.
And I guess if you're spending $8,000 on a camera, like just budget for a few lenses.
Yeah, like buy the 24 to 105 2.8, or like use your EF or use your PL. I mean, if you're in this world, it's like for the people who are buying a C400, I'm pretty sure they would have Canon lenses or things that could adapt to a Canon.
You're probably right. Yeah.
I don't think people are necessarily switching from Sony or from Red to get into a C400.
Probably not.
That's not that incredible of a camera. But it is exactly what Canon needed to release to fill out this end of their lineup.
Yeah. I mean, I like I said, I think it looks solid. I mean, there's nothing major in it that I feel like it's missing, really.
I think the FX6 and the FX9 are still good, decent cameras. They are getting a little old. Like we were expecting to see maybe a new FX6 this year, which would be probably well needed. And so when that comes out, I think those are going to be very competitive cameras, the FX6 and this C400.
Yeah.
But right now, it kind of, this is the newest best thing in that non-cinema camera, but dedicated video machine above $6,000, but less than $10,000.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. I mean, price seems right, and features seem right. It seems like a solid release.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I don't ever see myself getting a C400, but I also really like this as an option, and I feel like it would be really good for basically everything that we shoot.
Yeah,
so it's super cool.
Yeah, I think so too. Cool. Anything else?
Yeah, but I don't think we have time.
We've hit our limit on the C400 mega episode. That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter @CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.